They told me Delta Wing was for fragile species. Soft beds, easy training, safe missions. I lasted 4 days before I broke into the commander's office and demanded a real challenge. He sent me to Arena 7, where 10% of cadets don't walk out alive. I walked out twice, once covered in dust, once covered in blood, both times smiling. That's when they realized their mistake. Earth doesn't send soldiers to play it safe. We send survivors to remind you what danger actually looks like. And I was just getting started. The Galactic Defense Academy sat perched on the edge of Sector 9, a floating fortress of steel and light that housed the universe's most elite warriors. 300 species sent their finest, only 12% graduated. Commander Vexthor stood in his observation tower, watching the new intake filtering through the gates below, when a red flag appeared on his terminal. Not yellow, not orange. He leaned forward, mandibles clicking in confusion. Unclassifiable, he muttered. What in the seven hells does that mean? His assistant, a crystalline Luxon named Shiri, materialized beside him. Sir, the human arrival system cannot determine threat level. Cannot, or will not. Both, apparently. Vexthor pulled up the file. Name Jordan Kane. Planet of origin, Earth. Combat assessment, pending. Psychological profile, incomplete. Physical evaluation, insufficient data. Insufficient? Vexthor's throat sac inflated. We have full scans of every species in the known galaxy. How can we have insufficient data on a simple human? Sherry's crystalline form shifted colors, from blue to uncertain purple. The file notes Earth as a quarantined death world, sir. Class 12 biohazard rating. Our scanning protocols were not designed for organisms that survive in that environment. Ridiculous. Put her in the Delta Wing with the other fragile species. If she survives orientation, we will assess from there. What Vexthor did not know was that Jordan Kane had already survived 3 planetary conflicts, 2 insurgencies, and a childhood in the slums of old Detroit. The academy would be her vacation. Jordan stepped off the transport, boots hitting the deck with a solid thunk that made the nearest cluster of cadets flinch. She was of average height for a human, which meant she stood a head shorter than most species present. Dark hair pulled tight, gray eyes that scanned every corner, every exit, every potential threat with the practiced ease of someone who had learned to sleep with one eye open. Acrylian, all scales and arrogance, blocked her path. His name badge read Zektar. Move aside, little thing. Delta Wing is that way. You are delaying those of us bred for combat. Jordan looked up at him, smiled. Bred for combat. That is adorable. Did they breed you for manners too, or did that gene pool dry up? Sektar's crest flared. You dare insult, I dare breathe oxygen without a filtration system. I dare walk in 0.9 standard gravity without hydraulic support. I dare exist on a planet where the weather tries to murder me daily. So yeah, I dare. She stepped around him. Excuse me. Whispers followed her through the corridor. The human, the death worlder, the unclassifiable. Delta Wing turned out to be exactly what she expected. Soft beds. Climate control set to comfortable instead of challenging. A training regimen designed for species whose planets had never tried to eat them. Jordan dropped her pack on the assigned bunk and immediately started planning how to get herself transferred. Her roommate arrived an hour later, a Velen named Iris, all fur and nervous energy with massive eyes that took up half her face. Oh my. You are a human, I heard about you. They say your planet has predators that hunt in packs. They say your oceans contain creatures larger than starships. They say a lot of things. Jordan tossed Iris a ration bar from her pack. Most of it is true. Some of it is worse than they say. You allergic to anything in that? Iris caught it awkwardly and examined the wrapper. I do not think so. Why would you share your food? Because you look hungry. And because where I come from, you watch each other's backs or you do not make it home. That simple act of kindness would save Jordan's life 3 days later. Training began before dawn. Simulated combat scenarios, tactical analysis, weapons qualification. Jordan breezed through everything. Delta Wing threw at her, which was precisely the problem. She was not being challenged. She was being babied. On day 4, she marched straight into Commander Vexthor's office without an appointment. Cadet Kane. Vexthor did not look up from his data pad. You have exactly 30 seconds to explain why I should not have you thrown in the brig for insubordination. Sir, respectfully, Delta Wing is wasting both our time. I did not travel 300 light-years to learn how to hide behind a cover I already know how to use. You think you deserve Alpha Wing? With the apex predators and combat specialists? I think I deserve a fair assessment. Your system flagged me as unclassifiable, so classify me, put me through the real trials. If I fail, I will accept Delta Wing. If I succeed, you get a fully trained asset instead of a bored soldier. Vex Thor's mandibles clicked slowly. He studied the human before him. Small, unarmored, fragile by galactic standards. But her eyes held something he recognized. He had seen it in the veterans who had survived the Xanthian Wars. The ones who came back different. Fine. Tomorrow at 600 hours, report to Arena 7. Alpha Wing qualification course. If you survive, we will talk. Jordan saluted. Thank you, sir. Do not thank me yet, Cadet. That course has a 40% injury rate. 10% do not walk out. Good. Then it will finally be interesting. Arena 7 was a nightmare. Wrapped in chrome. Shifting terrain. Live ammunition. Holographic enemies with adaptive AI that learned from every mistake. Jordan entered alone, as per protocol, wearing standard light armor and carrying a plasma rifle she had never fired before. The first wave came fast, simulated Krillian shock troops, moving in formation. Jordan dropped, rolled, and came up firing. 3 down, adjusted for recoil, 4 more. The rifle overheated. She switched to sidearm, kept moving, never staying in one position long enough to become a target. Wave 2. Aerial drones. She used the terrain, forced them low, and picked them off as they tried to navigate the obstacles she had deliberately created with debris from the first wave. Wave 3. Close quarters. The arena walls closed in, creating a maze. This was where most cadets broke, where claustrophobia and panic took over. Jordan breathed slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let her training take over. Let Detroit's dark alleys guide her feet. Then came Wave 4. The one they did not warn you about. The arena went dark. Thermal vision useless. Motion sensors jammed. Pure darkness. The kind humans were supposed to fear. Except Jordan had grown up in darkness. She closed her eyes, listened, heard the whisper of actuators. The subtle hum of power cells. The nearly silent footsteps of something trying to be quiet. She fired blind. 3 shots. Heard the satisfying clatter of metal hitting stone. The lights came back on. The simulation ended. Jordan stood in the center of Arena 7, breathing hard, covered in sweat and dust, surrounded by the scattered remains of 37 simulated opponents. The observation room above erupted in shocked silence. Commander Vex Thor stared at the readouts. Run it again. Sir, I said run it again. Maximum difficulty. I want to see how she handles it. Sherry's form flickered with uncertainty. Sir, maximum difficulty is rated for species with natural armor and enhanced healing. If she gets injured, then we will have our answer about Deathworlders. Run it. The arena reset. Jordan looked up at the observation window. She could not see through the one-way glass, but she knew they were watching. She raised one hand, middle finger extended in a gesture that needed no translation. Then she smiled. This time, the arena threw everything. Gravity shifts. Toxic gas. Enemies that adapted in real time, traps that learned from her movements. Jordan fought like someone who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. She used the environment as a weapon, used the enemies against each other. When her rifle ran dry, she improvised. When her armor cracked, she kept moving. 20 minutes in, a Krillian combat drone cornered her in a dead end. No ammunition, no cover, no way out. Jordan ripped a piece of rebar from the wall and drove it through the drone's central processor. When it was finally over, she stood alone again, this time with multiple lacerations, a possibly fractured rib, and a smile that promised violence to anyone who questioned her placement again. The arena doors opened. Commander Vex Thor stood there personally, something he had not done in 5 years. Welcome to Alpha Wing, Cadet Kane. Jordan limped toward him. Thank you, sir. When do I start? You just did. And Cadet, that gesture you made before the second run, that was extremely inappropriate. Yes, sir. It was also extremely human. Over the next 3 months, Jordan proved she belonged. She outscored Krillian berserkers in close combat trials. She out-strategized Velian tactical specialists in command simulations. She survived environmental challenges that killed species literally designed for those conditions. But she also made enemies. Sektar never forgave the initial humiliation. He gathered a group of like-minded cadets, all of them convinced that humans were a fluke, a statistical anomaly that would eventually fail. They decided to prove it. It was Iris who overheard the plan, her large ears picking up whispered conversations in the mess hall. She found Jordan in the training room working through her 5th hour of combat drills. "Jordan, you need to listen. Sektar and his friends. They are planning something during the orbital drop exercise tomorrow. I heard them talking about equipment malfunctions, about accidents." Jordan stopped mid-punch, her fist buried in the training dummy. "Did they see you listening?" "No, I do not think so." "Good, thank you for the warning." Jordan resumed her training, her strikes somehow harder now, more focused. "That is it? Just thank you?" "Jordan, they are planning to kill you." "Iris." Jordan turned and placed both hands on her roommate's shoulders. "I grew up in a place where people tried to kill me before I learned to walk. Sektar is an amateur playing soldier. I am a soldier playing nice. There is a difference. What are you going to do?" Jordan's smile was cold. "I am going to give them exactly what they want. An accident." The orbital drop exercise was supposed to be routine. Cadets would deploy from low orbit, navigate atmospheric entry, land at designated coordinates, and rendezvous with their units. Standard procedure, practiced 1,000 times across the galaxy. Jordan checked her equipment twice, found the 3 sabotage attempts, and left them in place. Sektar watched from across the bay, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. He had no idea Jordan had spotted every single trap and was about to turn them into a lesson. The drop began. 50 cadets launched simultaneously, streaking through the sky like falling stars. Jordan's chute deployed late, just as Sektar had planned. But instead of panicking, she used the extra velocity, angled her descent, and executed a combat landing that would have made her old drill sergeant weep with pride. She hit the ground rolling, came up running, and immediately activated her emergency beacon on Sektar's frequency. "Mayday, mayday. Chute malfunction. Requesting emergency extraction at grid 779er. She could almost hear Sektar's celebration. He would rush to that location, expecting to find her broken body. Instead, he would find something much worse. Jordan waited in the shadows, watching as Sektar and his 2 accomplices arrived at the false coordinates. They were laughing, actually laughing. "Where is the body? Maybe she landed in the ravine. Good. Deathworlder." "What a joke." Jordan stepped out of concealment. "Funny thing about Deathworlders, we are really hard to kill." The 3 of them spun, reaching for weapons they had not bothered to draw. Jordan was faster. She disarmed the first one with a strike to the wrist, disabled the second with a sweep that put him face down in the dirt. Sektar, to his credit, actually managed to land a blow. His clawed hand raked across her armor, scoring deep gouges in the plating. Jordan absorbed the hit, stepped inside his guard, and delivered an uppercut that lifted all 300 pounds of Kryllian warrior off his feet. He crashed down hard. Jordan planted one boot on his chest. "Here is what happens next. You and your friends are going to confess to sabotaging my equipment. You are going to accept whatever punishment the commander decides. And you are going to remember that the next time you try to kill a human, you better make damn sure we are actually dead." She leaned down, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more threat than any shout. "Because we excel at coming back." 20 minutes later, Commander Vexthor stood in the command center, listening to Jordan's calm report of equipment malfunction and Sektar's tearful confession simultaneously. He looked at Sherry. "Unclassifiable, you said?" "Yes, sir. I think we need a new classification." What none of them knew was that the real test had not even begun. Because in orbit, a Xanthian warfleet had just dropped out of hyperspace, their targeting systems locked on the Academy, and Jordan Kane was about to show them why Earth did not just survive in the galaxy. It conquered. The alarms shrieked through every corridor, a sound designed to trigger primal fear in 300 different species. Jordan was already moving before the announcement finished, muscle memory overriding conscious thought. Around her, cadets stumbled from their quarters, confusion and terror painted across alien features in colors she was learning to read. Commander Vexthor's voice boomed through the station speakers. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Xanthian fleet, bearing 270, distance closing. All cadets report to evacuation shuttles immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill. Jordan ran against the tide of fleeing students, heading toward the armory instead of the evacuation bays. A four-armed, thick Jane instructor tried to grab her. Wrong way, cadet. Nope, right way, just not the safe way. She shoved past him, her fingers already dancing across the armory's security panel. Her override code, technically only valid for training exercises, somehow still worked. The door hissed open. Inside, enough firepower to level a small moon sat waiting. Jordan grabbed a pulse rifle, the good kind with sustained fire mode, and started loading magazines into every pocket and pouch her armor had. Jordan! Iris appeared in the doorway, her massive eyes even wider than usual. What are you doing? We have to evacuate. You evacuate. I am staying. That is insane. The Xanthians are planet killers. They do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They just destroy. Jordan slammed a fresh magazine home. Then they picked the wrong academy. You cannot fight an entire fleet. Watch me, Jordan pushed past her friend, then paused. Iris, get to the shuttles. Make sure everyone gets out. Promise me. I promise. But Jordan, you need to understand something. If you stay, you die. That is not bravery. That is suicide. Jordan's smile was sharp enough to cut starlight. There is a third option you are not considering. Maybe I am not planning to die. Maybe I am planning to make them wish they had never heard of Earth. She was gone before Iris could respond, boots pounding against metal flooring as she navigated corridors she had memorized during her first week. The station shuddered. Distant explosions echoed through the superstructure. The Xanthians were testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. They were about to find one that bit back. The Tactical Operations Center was in chaos. Officers shouted coordinates. Holographic displays showed the Xanthian fleet spreading out, surrounding the academy in a formation designed for total annihilation. Commander Vexthor stood at the center, his mandibles working overtime as he tried to coordinate a defense with woefully inadequate resources. Sir, Jordan burst through the door, requesting permission to access the defense grid. Cadet Kane, you should be on an evacuation shuttle, and you should have a full battalion of trained soldiers, but we work with what we have. Sir, I can help. I know Earth defense protocols. I know how to hurt these bastards. Vexthor's throat sac inflated and deflated rapidly, the Krillian equivalent of rapid-fire thinking. Around him, his command staff was too busy to protest. Outside, the Xanthians were minutes from weapons range. He made a decision that would either save them all or doom them faster. Sherry, give her access. Limited scope, defense grid only. Jordan was at a terminal before he finished speaking, her fingers flying across controls designed for species with 3 times as many digits. She compensated with speed and Earth-taught ingenuity. Okay, let's see what we are working with. 6 defense satellites, minimal ammunition, shields at 60%. She pulled up the Xanthian formation, 16 heavy cruisers, 4 dreadnoughts. Too many fighters to count. Standard genocide protocol. They will pound the shields, then move in for close bombardment. Your assessment is accurate, Cadet, which is why evacuation is our only option. No, sir. Evacuation is their expected option. That is why they are not moving to intercept the shuttles. They want everyone bunched up, easy to track, easy to destroy after they finish here. We are not giving them that satisfaction. Jordan's hands never stopped moving. She was reprogramming the defense satellites, changing their targeting protocols, turning academy training tools into actual weapons. What are you doing? Sherry materialized beside her, crystalline form flickering confused colors. Something my old commander taught me. When you are outgunned, you change the rules. The Xanthians are expecting us to defend the station, so we are not going to defend it. That makes no sense. Exactly. Which is why it will work. Jordan slammed the final command sequence. All defense satellites. New targeting priority. Ignore the capital ships. Focus exclusively on their fighter screen. Maximum rate of fire. Burn through ammunition reserves. Do it now. The satellites obeyed. Space lit up with plasma fire, concentrated beams that carved through the Xanthian fighter formation like a hot knife through frozen carbon. Dozens of small craft exploded in silent fury. The Xanthian fleet hesitated, confused by the Academy's suicidal tactic of wasting precious ammunition on insignificant targets. That hesitation lasted exactly 12 seconds. It was enough. Now hit them with everything else. Shields to full forward. Ram the closest dreadnought. Rem? Vexthor's voice cracked. This station is not a weapon. We have civilians still aboard. Sir, with respect, in 3 minutes this station becomes a tomb. In 4 minutes, it becomes debris. Right now, it is still mobile, still has momentum, still has a reactor that can be overloaded. We can sit here and die. Or we can die taking one of those dreadnoughts with us, and maybe, just maybe, give our people time to escape. Every officer in the room stared at her. This small human, barely qualified, is suggesting they weaponize an entire academy. Vexthor looked at the tactical display, at the Xanthian fleet closing in, at the evacuation shuttles are struggling to gain distance. The numbers promised that everyone aboard would die unless something changed. Sherry, transfer helm control to Cadet Kane. Sir, I must protest. Your protest is noted and overruled. Do it. Jordan felt the station respond to her touch, massive engines coming online with a roar that vibrated through every bulkhead. She angled toward the closest Xanthian dreadnought, pushing the Academy's engines past safety limits, past recommended maximums, into the red zone where metal screamed and reactors threatened to tear themselves apart. The Xanthians finally realized what was happening. They opened fire, everything they had pouring destruction into the Academy's shields. Warning klaxons blared. Systems failed in cascading succession, but the station kept moving, kept accelerating. A multi-million-ton projectile aimed at the heart of their formation. Collision in 40 seconds, Sherry announced, her voice somehow calm despite imminent death. All remaining personnel to escape pods, Vexthor ordered. That includes you, Cadet Kane. Negative, sir. I need to keep us on course. If I leave the helm, they will adjust and avoid impact. Someone has to stay. That is an order. Jordan looked back at him, and in that moment Vexthor saw why Earth was quarantined. Why were humans flagged as unclassifiable? Because they had something the rest of the galaxy lacked. They could choose death over surrender, and smile while doing it. Sir, I respectfully decline. You have 15 seconds to evacuate. I suggest you use them. Vexthor grabbed Sherry and ran. His command staff followed. Jordan heard their footsteps fading, heard the hiss of escape pods launching. She was alone on the bridge, alone with a dying station and a Xanthian fleet that was about to learn a hard lesson. 10 seconds to impact. The dreadnought tried to evade, its massive bulk turning with surprising grace. But grace meant nothing when your opponent was willing to die. 5 seconds. Jordan thought of Detroit, thought of the streets that raised her, thought of every person who said humans did not belong among the stars. 3 seconds. She whispered a prayer her grandmother taught her, the one about fearing no evil. 1 second. She closed her eyes. The Academy station struck the Xanthian dreadnought at 0.03% light speed. The explosion was visible from 3 solar systems away. It created a shockwave that disabled 2 more capital ships and scattered the fighter screen like leaves in a hurricane. In the wreckage, a single escape pod tumbled through space, its beacon screaming emergency frequencies. Inside, Jordan Kane coughed blood and laughed. Gotcha, she whispered, then passed out. She woke in medical bay, wrapped in regenerative bandages, her body held together more by technology than biology. Commander Vexthor sat beside her bed. So did Iris. So did 3 admirals she did not recognize, and a human woman in an Earth Defense Force dress uniform. Cadet Kane, the woman said, I am Admiral Chen, Earth's liaison to Galactic Command. You are either the bravest person I have ever met, or the stupidest. Possibly both. Jordan tried to speak. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Did everyone make it? All evacuation shuttles reached safety. You destroyed 1 Xanthian dreadnought, crippled 2 more and scattered their fleet long enough for reinforcements to arrive. 300 species, 1,700 cadets, all alive because you chose to stay. Just doing my job, ma'am. Your job was to evacuate. You chose to disobey orders and commit what amounts to a suicide attack. Jordan met her eyes. Permission to speak freely. Granted. My job is to protect people. Orders are guidelines. Suicide implies I expected to die. I expected to win. There is a difference. Admiral Chen smiled. You ejected at the last possible second, 0.3 seconds before impact. Our simulations show you had a less than 2% chance of surviving the acceleration forces. So you are saying I am lucky? No, Cadet. I am saying you calculated those odds and took them anyway. That is not luck. That is what makes you human. She stood, nodded to Vets 4. Commander, we need to discuss this one's future. They left. Iris remained, her huge eyes damp. You promised me you were not planning to die. And I did not die, see? Promise kept. You blew up a space station with yourself on it. Technically, I evacuated first. The blowing up happened after. Details matter, Iris. Her friend laughed through tears, then hugged Jordan carefully, mindful of the injuries. You are insane.
Yeah.
But I am alive. We are all alive. That is what matters. The door opened again. Zektar entered, moving slowly, his crest lowered in a gesture Jordan had learned meant respect among Krillians. He stood at the foot of her bed, silent for a long moment. I owe you an apology, human. Multiple apologies. I tried to kill you. You saved my life. I called you weak. You proved stronger than any warrior I have known. I was wrong. Jordan studied him. Yeah, you were. But you are here now admitting it. That takes guts. Apology accepted. I wish to make amends. Formally, in the Krillian way, I offer you my blade in service. If you accept, I am bound to protect you until death takes one of us. Zektar, I do not need a bodyguard. I know that is why I am offering. You do not need protection, but perhaps you could use an ally. Someone who has seen what humans can do and wants to stand beside them instead of against them. Jordan glanced at Iris, who nodded encouragingly. All right. Yeah. Welcome to the team, big guy. But if you ever sabotage my equipment again, I will feed you to an earth shark. What is a shark? You really do not want to know. 6 months later, Jordan Kane graduated top of her class at the Galactic Defense Academy. She received commendations from 16 species, a medal from Earth High Command, and a permanent notation in her file that read, classified threat level, maximum. But that night, after the ceremony, after the speeches and celebrations, she sat alone in the observation deck watching stars drift by. Iris found her there, followed by Zektar, then others, students she had trained with, officers she had served under, aliens from worlds she had never heard of before came here. They sat together in comfortable silence. A collection of beings from across the galaxy, united by the human who showed them that courage was not about where you came from. It was about choosing to stand when running made more sense. It was about protecting others even when the cost was everything. It was about looking at impossible odds and saying, not today. That was what made humans unclassifiable. Not their strength, not their endurance, not even their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. It was their absolute unshakable belief that even when the galaxy said no, they could make it say yes through sheer force of will and strategic application of explosions. Commander Vexthor watched from the doorway, a rare smile crossing his features. Sherry materialized beside him. The human is crying. Yes, I do not understand. She won. Why the sadness? Not sadness, Sherry. Relief, joy, gratitude. Humans leak emotions through their eyes. It is disconcerting but apparently therapeutic. She changed everything, sir. 3 species have already requested human military advisors. The Council is discussing Earth's quarantine status. 1 cadet altered galactic politics. 1 cadet reminded us what we had forgotten. That survival is not about evolution or advantage or genetic superiority. It is about the heart. And humans have more heart than the rest of us combined. As if hearing him, Jordan looked back, caught his eye, and raised one hand. Not the rude gesture from months ago, a salute, proper, respectful, earned. Vexthor returned it. Somewhere in deep space, the Xanthians were regrouping, planning retaliation. They would come again with greater numbers, better weapons, more determination. But next time, they would face an academy that had learned from Earth. They would face warriors trained by a human. They would face the galaxy united by the example of one small, stubborn, unclassifiable woman who refused to die. The Xanthians would learn what species across the galaxy were beginning to understand. Humans did not need to be the strongest to be the most dangerous. They just needed to be the most willing to do whatever it took. And that willingness, that absolutely terrifying dedication to victory or death, that was humanity's true weapon. Jordan Kane would go on to lead missions across hostile territory. She would broker peace between warring species, She would train the next generation of soldiers. She would become a legend, whispered in 100 languages across 1,000 worlds. But tonight, surrounded by friends, wrapped in the warmth of acceptance and earned respect, she was just a kid from Detroit who had somehow made it to the stars. And that was enough. That was everything.